Hey guys, I'm Clarke, and today I'm looking at two very popular pedals, the Marshall Blues Breaker and the Boss BD-2 Blues Driver. Now I know a lot of people get these two confused, thinking that the Boss Blues Driver is a clone of the Blues Breaker, but they are different circuits and therefore they do sound different. Now the Marshall Blues Breaker is probably most famous for being used on John Mayer's Continuum album for songs like Slow Dancing in a Burning Room. But the confusion between these pedals is such that I have also seen quite reputable sources reporting that it was a Boss Blues Driver. Indeed, maybe I'm wrong. My point is, people are confused about the differences. So I thought what I'd do now is demonstrate both, and you can hear the differences between them. So what we have here is a Marshall Blues Breaker from 1991, which is actually the first year that they made them. So it is the definitive Blues Breaker pedal. It's had the input and output jacks replaced because the old ones perished. But other than that, it is totally original. And next to it, a much more modern Blues Driver from Boss. Now, obviously, the price point between these is very, very different, but that isn't really what we're focusing on. This is not a cheap versus expensive challenge. Now, I know from experience that these two pedals have very different output levels, but I'm going to start with everything at 12 o'clock so we can give a true representation. I'm using my Fender American Professional Strat with Seymour Duncan's Everything Axe set in it, so they're all humbucking pickups, and I'm running into Helix Native's model of the Fender Twin Reverb. Sounds like this. Now, as you can hear, even when I dug in quite hard, it still wasn't breaking up. This is a really, really clean setting, so we can just hear the overdrive from the pedals. If you want me to shut up and just play, then you can skip to the timestamp on screen now. So starting with the Marshall Blues Breaker. Now, like I say, very different output levels. The Marshall Blues Breaker actually is below unity gain when at 12 o'clock, and the Blues Driver is above unity gain when at 12 o'clock. So let's see if we can even them out a little bit and make sure they're not boosting or subtracting. There we go. Okay, so now we've got the volumes right, let's start seeing what the gain controls do. Now, you can already hear that the Blues Driver is a much higher gain pedal. The Blues Breaker does get a bit of grit going on, but not till right at the top. So what I'll do is I'll sweep through from 0 gain all the way up to 10 on each pedal, so you can hear what the gain sweep is. So, first thing you'll notice is that there is a lot more gain in the Blues Driver. It almost gets into distortion territory when we get up to the top. But also, the Blues Breaker has a very unusual and non-linear gain control. For the first 3/4, 2/3 at least of the pot, you don't really get much more gain. It sort of just thickens it rather than actually gaining up. And in the last bit, you suddenly get this gain boost. So even with the gain about here at 230... it's not really distorting all that much, and then suddenly if I turn it even the smallest amount, you can just start hearing it pick up at 3 o'clock, but then any further, huge difference from 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock on the Blues Breaker. Now, arguably that makes it less usable, but the Blues Breaker is very well known for being quite a characterful pedal, to put it politely. If you look at the thing slightly strangely, it will change how it sounds. People often say that the 3 controls on it are very interactive, meaning that changing one affects the others greatly. And I think maybe you just heard it just then, in fact. Yes, it got gainier, but I think it also got louder. If you're interested in the nuances of the Marshall Blues Breaker, hit the video link that's in the description or popping up around here somewhere, where I go a little bit more deep dive into the kind of characteristics of it. But yeah, very interactive controls. The advantage of that is that it kind of gets you to places you weren't expecting to go. So as a creative tool, it can be quite useful. If you know exactly what you want, it might be a little bit more tricky. Now, like I said earlier on, a lot of people use these pedals to try and get a John Mayer type sound, that being a much more clean sound. A lot of people talk about the clean tones from both of these pedals. So let's have a go at that and see where we are. Now, like I said, the Blues Breaker has a much lower gain, so I will probably need to have that gain a little bit higher. Let's see where we are here. So no one's going to describe that sound as distorted, it just has a bit more thickness to it. So when you're doing those John Mayer style licks, first without the Blues Breaker, and now with the Blues Breaker, definitely a little bit more thickness, a little bit more interest, it adds a bit more characters to the tone. So let's try and do the same thing with the Blues Driver. So again, first clean, and then with the Blues Driver. Again, similar kind of thing. So at this kind of gain level, I feel like you can really use both to achieve a very similar thing. They are, of course, going to have different tonal characteristics, and that'll be down to what you like, what guitar you've got, what amp you like. There isn't really one that's better for that kind of thing, in my humble opinion. Now, I'm going to shut up and let you guys just actually listen to how these pedals sound. So yeah, slightly different tonal characteristics. Now let's try a little bit more high gain. Now you notice me adjust the volume control on the Blues Breaker there when I turned up the gain, because like I said, the controls do affect each other quite significantly. I would definitely say the Blues Breaker is less versatile. That doesn't mean I think it's less good, but if you're wanting a pedal that's going to do just as much as it can with such a simple pedal, 1 switch 3 controls, then I think the Blues Driver is the obvious choice. But if you're wanting the kind of clean thing, if that's what you want, it's really down to whatever suits your playing, your setup. This isn't really supposed to be which one's better, it's more just showing you the difference between them, and I think there is quite a significant difference between them. I definitely think the tone of the Blues Breaker immediately made me think more John Mayer, but that might just be the guitar I've got and the amp setup I've got, etc, etc. So the last thing I want to see is on the Boss Blues Driver's gain setting, where it needs to be to match the max gain of the Blues Breaker, just to kind of put the Blues Breaker's gain level into some kind of perspective. So here it is, the Blues Breaker on its maximum gain setting. So there you have it, the Boss BD-2 versus the Blues Breaker. Very different sounding pedals, and I hope this was in some way useful to you guys. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit the like button, make sure you're subscribed and you've got the bell icon ticked to be notified of new videos. Have yourself a great day, and I'll see you next time.